Okay, members. It's 4:30. By that, I've only got one clock to look at now, so we're going by that clock. I've no idea what's happened to the other one, Lee. Anyway, it's 4:30. Welcome everybody to the East Cambs District Council Finance and Assets Committee on the 27th of November, and welcome to those members of the public and press who are watching this online. Hopefully the live stream will stay up and we will carry on. If we do have an issue, then obviously we will try and fix it, but if we can't fix it, we will just carry on without the live stream, but hopefully that won't happen. So the first item is public question time. Do we have any public questions, Jane?
Thank you, Chair. No public questions received.
Okay, thank you. And then second item is apologies and substitutions.
We've received apologies from Councillor Mark Goldsack and Councillor Alison Whelan and Councillor Mary Wade. We have Councillor Julia Huffer substituting for Mark Goldsack and Councillor Christine Colbert substituting for Alison Whelan.
Okay, thank you. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest from members? No, okay, thank you. If you do become aware during the meeting that you might have an interest, then obviously please let us know at that time. Thank you. Item 4 are the minutes. To confirm the minutes of the 25th of September. Are there any comments on the minutes? I'm taking that as everybody's happy with those, so I'll probably sign those. I'll be signing those after the meeting. Yeah, okay. Item 5 is Chair's announcements. I've got no announcements. So we move on to item 6, which is Pathway to Net Zero. I've got Richard Kay who's going to present it.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so yes, my name's, I think you'll probably know who I am, but just for the record, Richard Kay, the Climate Change and Natural Environment Manager. So the two parts of this report presented to you this evening. One is around a pathway to net zero, as its title for this council, and the second part is around our latest update on the emissions which arise from this council. And I'm going to take them in reverse order because the pathway to net zero is obviously informed by what are our emissions in the first place. So we've reported our emissions, our annual carbon emissions now for a number of years. It's not a statutory duty to do so, but it is common and best practice that we do so. And you might be wondering why do we do it? Well, one is so we can attempt, or any organisation can attempt, if they do report their emissions, to find out what is our actual impact on climate change from the activities that we do. And secondly, it helps identify potential areas to reduce those emissions. And it's always worth remembering that if you can identify where to reduce emissions, it often is an area where you can also reduce costs and save money. This year, we've brought in-house that process of calculating the emissions and compiling the report. And I believe this year we've made some really fundamental improvements in how we do so, both in the quality of what we've produced and how we present it, but also now in the breadth of what we are reporting. So there are some changes compared to what we've done in previous years, but I do believe these are significant improvements. In particular, we've done a lot more work on our what are known as Scope 3 emissions. These are the indirect emissions that can often be hard to calculate. So as a brief reminder, Scope 1 emissions are the really obvious emissions, so that's things where you might be burning gas to heat this room or putting fuel in your car. Scope 2 is electricity, typically almost entirely electricity. That's quite easy to calculate. Scope 3 are the more complicated ones where you might be buying something or using something indirectly. So you're not the person actually burning the gas or creating the emissions, but because you bought something or asked something or undertaken something, indirectly you are causing greenhouse gas emissions, and they are known as Scope 3 emissions. So I must emphasise, as I think I do every year, that this is not an exact science. It is really, really hard to work all these things out. Some things are much easier than others. So your gas bill, for example, is much easier to work out what your emissions are because you know exactly how much gas you've used because you get billed for it and you can convert that quite straightforward. Other things are much more harder and you have to make lots of assumptions as to precisely what the emissions may well be from that. So we are confident in, to a lesser or greater degree, depending on what those sorts of emissions are. But what we have done, and this year in particular, we've tried to make them as reasonably accurate and comprehensive as we possibly can. It's not perfect, it will never be perfect, no organisation's perfect on this, but each year we try to improve it, try to increase the breadth of what we're reporting on, and try to increase, in line with best practice, make those calculations as clear and honest and transparent as possible. And I hope, and with credit to my climate officer, Evie, I hope you agree with me that how we've presented those emissions is a significant improvement as well. We're trying to, or Evie's presented it in a much more nice way than I used to, because I used to compile the report. I think it's much better, much clearer, much easier to digest. Or I hope you agree on that anyway. I certainly do. So there's your latest sort of baseline information in that part of the report. What are our emissions? Where do they come from? What does it all add up to? The second part of this report is partly reflecting on what our emissions are, but partly reflecting on that this committee itself asked for a report to say, can you please set out how are we going to get to the net zero targets that we've set ourselves? So as a reminder, this council has already set a number of milestones of how we're going to get to net zero. But what the council wanted was a more comprehensive plan, if you like, or action plan, or risks and issues as to how we're actually going to get there. So that's the brief, if you like, of what's presented to you today. I've given it a title, Pathway to Net Zero. And what it aims to do is, as I say, explain in more detail where are our emissions, what are our options for doing it, when could we realistically try and get those numbers down in certain sectors. And some are going to be quicker and harder or easier or whatever it might be than others. I'm not going to go through each one in that report in detail because I'll be here forever and you may or may not have questions on some of them, which I'm obviously perfectly happy to do. But how the report is structured, it takes those different types of emissions or scopes, as I just referred to. It explains what the source is, explain how we could possibly reduce them, what our options are, what are the risks to that. Because, you know, these are a long-term program, so lots of things could or couldn't happen in the meantime. And then it also sets out, you know, if all goes well, if these actions are implemented, what would that trajectory look like for each of these different scopes? And hopefully it then tells the story that if these actions are implemented or broadly implemented, and we may add new actions over the time, obviously, or we may have to adjust some of the actions depending on how technology improves or doesn't improve as we expect. But hopefully it gives you a broad direction of how we can get towards net zero. It is just a pathway. It's not a guarantee with these things. It's just a way, a realistic scenario that I believe is possible to get there. But to actually get there, we'd obviously have to implement these actions. I'm sure we'd have to bring in more actions as well as we go along to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. But it does demonstrate that what we've set ourselves as target are realistic. With work, it will take work, you know, it's not going to happen by accident, this sort of thing. But if we do implement the actions that's set out in the pathway, it does demonstrate that it is achievable for this council to reach its targets and eventually get to net zero. So I'll leave it at that, if that's okay, Chair, but obviously I'm very happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, for that. Members, any questions of Richard? Councillor Colbert.
Well, there's a couple of things that I'd like to raise, please. One's just sort of by way of an explanation within the document. On page 30, you've explained that Palace Greens Homes Limited exists and what it does, basically. Do you not think, for completeness, we should have a description about East Cams Trading Company and East Cam Street Scene and the way they go about dealing with their own emissions?
The reason for the distinction between the two is that Palace Green homes are not included in any of these numbers and calculations that I've done here. They're effectively been treated as independent, whereas the others you refer to in their activities. So, for example, collecting our bins and the implications of that, the emissions arising, are included in our numbers. So that's why there's a distinction between the two.
Sorry, I understand that, but they are within the scope of 3, aren't they? Because they're activities that they perform for the council. So I would have assumed that they should be, I'm only talking about mentioning them by way of explanation, so people understand who does what.
It's possible. It depends whether that's the appropriate place here to refer to that. I think I do briefly mention those companies and what they do. It depends whether you want the detail.
I don't think they're in there because I'm subbing. I haven't studied these as scrupulously as I suppose I might have done, but I only noticed reference to Palace Green Homes Limited, but not the other two. I stand to be corrected. They might be in there and I haven't found them.
Through you, Chair. It refers to fuel used in our fleet vehicles and large refuse collection. It does mention the fleet vehicles and the waste collection service. Page 29.
29.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It does mention the fleet vehicles. Well, I still tend to think that it should explain that they're operated by ECSS. That's, yeah, just for clarity. Yeah, can I?
You got another question?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
fine.
I have, please. Sorry, this is even more loose. It occurred to me that we have a significant influence on what our residents do by way of entertainment, by the manner in which we promote tourism within the area. Because if they're visiting attractions within East Cambs, they're obviously not driving off to Great Yarmouth or Windsor or Colchester or the various other places. We do have Explore East Cambs online, but I wondered if there was anything available on paper, and there seems not to be. I went down to the TIC this morning with a list of various attractions that I know of, and there was no paperwork on any of them, because TIC, which is based on Ely and quite reasonably doesn't produce anything for outside of Ely, they told me that they rely on these various places to provide their own literature, which isn't unreasonable. But the thing is, people can't visit them if they don't know where they are. And there's nothing in the TIC either to advise people that that Explore East Cambs exists. I just feel that we could help reduce our own emissions and at the same time boost the economy locally through tourism by just going a few steps further in promoting the subject. Sorry, I'm not quite sure how I expect you to answer that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's probably not appropriate for this report, because this is about how our emissions as an organisation, not necessarily those of our residents or tourists. I mean, I get your point, you know, we want to encourage people not to travel if they don't have to travel, and going locally is a good thing. It's probably not relevant to this report, though, because this is very specific on our emissions as a council, not the district as a whole. But I take your point, I understand that.
Okay, I was just thinking the way we can influence, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that. I mean, I see where you're coming from, Councillor Colbert, but it's not just Ely. I mean, we've got one of the top race courses in the country, or in the world, actually in the district in the south, which is the July course in Newmarket, is in Cambridgeshire. So, but I understand where you're coming from. Thank you. I've got Councillor Whelan. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question on what engagement have you had with the external bodies mentioned in the report?
Could you explain which external bodies you're referring to? Or?
That you mention, is it the pensions and, yeah, I think it's one of the external bodies you've actually mentioned in the report.
In terms of the pension element of the reports, we have engaged with the West North Ants, or the administrators of our pension funds, as part of their wider Cambridgeshire pension fund. So we've engaged with those quite extensively over a number of weeks to get the information from them, as well as utilising the information that they publish on their website. So we've definitely engaged with those comprehensively. The rest of the information is predominantly internal information, so I wouldn't say we've engaged much more wider than that, because the other information is sourced from in-house. For example, our facilities team, who are responsible for paying bills for the council, have all the data that we needed from them. So we've engaged internally with lots of different departments, but not necessarily externally, because it's about our emissions and what we are doing and where are they coming from and what we're going to do about it. The pension fund was slightly different because we don't administer that in-house. We obviously rely on West North Ants, so in that instance we did engage with them quite extensively.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Trapp.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I haven't got a page number for this because it's online. It's this Appendix B. I don't think we got that on paper, did we? But I just wondered, in table scope 1, why electricity was not mentioned. You got gas consumption, heating oil, fugitive emissions, and fleet vehicles, but no electricity.
Okay, so scope 1 is where you directly burn the fossil fuel yourself and create the fossil fuel yourself. So, as I say, if you've got a gas central heating system, you're burning gas in your building. Electricity, when you use your electricity, there's no emissions arise from that point of using electricity, but emissions arise at the power station from wherever that electricity come from, and that's known as scope 2. So electricity is always scope 2. So that's why they separated. So wherever you see scope 2 in here, it'll be referring to electricity.
If I can come in there, it's on page, I think what you're looking for, Councillor Trapp, it's on page 25. Scope, it's got the definitions, and scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Page 25 of the pack. Sorry, does that answer your question? Members, any other questions? I'm seeing no questions, in which case, are members happy to move to the vote, or do you want to, is there anybody who wants to debate this, or in which case do I have we're being asked to approve the report, so do I have a proposer for that?
I'm happy to propose it, Chair, and just want to say thank you very much to our officers, because this is incredibly comprehensive. You know, it's massively more information than I think we've had in the past. I like the way the new report's set out. Congratulations, we've hit our 2028 Scope 1 target, three years in advance to get to more than 50% reduction from the baseline. So I think that's, you know, and I know that you bear down on everybody on this subject on a regular basis, Richard, and you know, you've got us into line so far, so just congratulations and thank you very much for your passion and enthusiasm on this subject, and for the comprehensive nature of the report that we've got, because and I think if we can broadly keep it going in the same fashion now, it'll be really good, because we can you know, view it over a period of time now, which is what's important, isn't it? It's that main trajectory that we need to get to. There'll no doubt be bumps in the road, but it's great. Thank you.
I'd like to echo those comments as well, but do I have a seconder for?
Happy to second, Chair, and also say, Richard, fantastic report. Actually, I think one of the words you used there is realistic. And it's nice to see actually what I think a report that is actually realistic. We see lots of, particularly from central government, figures thrown around which are completely unrealistic and fanciful. And I think this actually is a realistic target, and we seem to be on track for that. One very small point, spelling mistake on page 45. Page 45, 7.1, this report has attempts to set out, should say attempted. Other than that, I was delighted with it.
Okay, so members, we're being asked to, on page 15, 2.1, approve the pathway to net zero report at Appendix A, and then in 2.2, note the latest emission monitoring report, which I think we've done. So, members, all in favour of 2.1, approving this report? All those against? All those abstaining? Six. Okay, that is passed. Thank you. Item 7 is the annual infrastructure funding statement, and I've just spotted it. There is a spelling mistake on this on the contact officer. It's Lucy Flintham, not Lucy Fintham. The L's been left off your name. Apologies, Lucy. We know who you are, but over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. So members are requested to note this report, which details the developer contributions received by the Council during the last financial year. So just over £2.7 million of SIL and £2.5 million in Section 106 funding was collected by the Council during the last financial year, and the report details expenditure of this. So in addition to the projects on our SIL infrastructure list, which have received SIL funding, over £264,000 was passed to the parish councils in meaningful proportion payments, which is the parish element of the SIL. The breakdown of this can be found on page 55 of the agenda or page 3 of the appendix. The table on page 55 to 57 of the agenda then details all SIL expenditure, which details the meaningful proportion amounts again. So since publishing the committee report, it's been identified that there is an error on page 60, which is relating to the number of affordable units secured by Section 106, and this figure should read 174 and not the 91 as shown. So members are requested to note this report, which will be published on the Council's website with the above mentioned amendment included. Thank you. And my name's spelled properly. Yeah.
Thank you, Lucy, for that. As Lucy says, we're being asked to note this report. So, members, any questions? No, I'm seeing no questions. In which case, thank you for that. And obviously, it'll get noted in the minutes. The 91 should be 174, Jane, presumably. Yeah, okay, thank you.
And the published version will be correct.
Yeah. Yeah. With the proper name, your proper name. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Item 8 is the assets update. I'm going to hand you over to Spencer. Just one thing before we do mention, obviously there is on 4.3 comments about the bereavement centre. Spencer will only be giving a high-level report. We have got Isabel Edgar coming to the January Finance and Assets Committee to give us a 6-month report, so you'll be able to get more detailed questions then. Spencer, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a few little updates that are not in the report. So I'll start off with Palace Green toilets. With the light refurbishment is well underway, with the completion estimated to open on the Monday the 12th of December, which should be in plenty of time for the busy Christmas period. So it should have a fresh look, and also we're taking an opportunity to look at the efficiency of the toilets with the water usage and the electricity usage. So it's a good lead on from when we start looking at the cloisters refurbishment in the new year. Secondly, I'd just like to say the Newnham Street car park and roadway repairs, the tender closes very shortly. I think it's about mid or to the end of December. We've had a good response so far from people submitting interest in the tender. And finally, I just want to say that we have now ordered the new dock car park ticket machines. They've been ordered, so they're designed to take cash payments, credit card and debit card payments, and also phone payments where you can use your phone as a credit card. I'm not sure how you say that. On the back of that, obviously, we've got the new app, the Ringo app, which is now working and operating really well. Plus, also, you've got the opportunity to ring in office hours to speak to someone and pay over the phone. So it gives plenty of options for people to pay. But going forward, once the machines are installed, we'll certainly do a promotion on ways to pay, and all that includes information down in the car park as well. So I think that's pretty much all the updates. Obviously, the bereavement centre is really in the report, so that's just, it's on schedule, and that. So I think I'll leave it at that then. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Spencer. Thank you for that. As the Assets Champion, Councillor Hunt, do you want to say anything?
Well, actually, I wanted to ask a question from Spencer. I didn't quite hear what you were saying about Newnham Street car park. Could you repeat it?
Apologies, Councillor. Yeah, the closing date for the tenders is coming up in mid-December. We've had a really good response from companies expressing interest to quote for the works. And I've been taking quite a few phone calls with questions and queries from those contractors. So it's a good response, basically.
Your microphone, Councillor Hunt.
Am I right in thinking that some of the delay for the resurfacing has been caused by imposed bureaucracy on you?
The procurement process can be quite challenging at times, yes. Or my understanding of it, anyway.
Right, and I'm sure all members of the public will understand that you're fighting against a sort of barrier of red tape. And I appreciate what you're doing, and you're managing to just about cope with getting over it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. I've got Councillor Akinwale.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to ask, how is the current level of funding for the play area, for instance? How has it been determined? And do you consider this to be sufficient in light of the emerging inclusive play audit that is currently going on?
Yeah, actually, I should have just mentioned about the inclusive play audit that we're having. I haven't been able to contact Becky, who's been carrying out the audit so I shall bring back in January a more up-to-date of where we are in that whole audit with all the parishes and that involved. As far as the funding goes, that's sitting outside my remit, so I can't really answer that question.
I've got Sally wants to try and answer that.
So the pot has been accumulated as per the SIL governance arrangements that were agreed February, Council, I think, but that were agreed by full Council. And then people that want to apply for the SIL funding do it as per the scheme that's set out on the Council's website. So there's an applying for SIL funding web page. So yeah, refer people to that, and that's how they apply for funding.
Thank you. And just another question. I don't know who to ask, whether it's you or you. Has any modeling been done to estimate the total investment that's going to be required for an actual inclusive play area? Is there any modeling that's been done? Anything have you done any comparisons as to what's currently been done out there at the moment?
In terms of what other people offer?
Yes. So basically, in terms of what other people have done, in terms of the costings, what's required for that inclusive play area. Have you done any modeling out there? Any comparisons? Thank you.
Through your chair, perhaps I can assist in helping with that question. So the purpose of the play audit for both the council and the parish council is to get a rough idea to get an estimate of what the art of the possible is in the district. So no modelling has been done at the moment. The next stage after the audit is to develop the play strategy that we're committed to, and that will form part of that work. The funding that's coming through the SIL pot isn't intended to fund that in whole, or it will be in part for some match funding as well, but the council could take different decisions later on once we know what that audit is telling us. So we are at stage one of that piece of work. But in the because what the strategy is also likely to do is provide a toolkit and some signposting as well to other areas to develop them. Because I know in Kennet we've delivered the inclusive play area. That was at no cost to the council at all because the developer had worked with the landowner there to deliver that. And actually it was a very cost-effective way of doing it because a developer didn't have to go through the public procurement. So they were able to deliver it quite cheaply. So what we're doing is taking the stage, get the audit, develop the strategy. But in the meantime, where you've got parish councils that are quite advanced in their thinking, there's a pot of money available for them to put a bid in for match funding. So I hope that answers the question, Chair.
Thank you. That's the last question. In terms of that, obviously you mentioned the more advanced parish councils, but obviously there are some parish councils that may not have that particular information. So is there a guide currently available to help parish councils to determine what is required for their own inclusive play area?
Through the engagement work they do with PIPA, people have been reaching out and wanting to speak to those parish councils. What we could do as part of the strategy is find out, is there a ready, easy user guide, digestible guide for parish councils? Because what we want to do is give people the tools, as many tools as we can, to enable them to take decisions and to make it easier for them as well. So it's not always about financial help. This is about how can people do it for themselves. This is the steps you take, or phone this person, that person. So that will come through for the strategy.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll bring Councillor Trapp in a minute. Have we got a very rough idea of how long the audit will last, when we can expect it? I'm not going to hold you to something. I'm just getting an idea of where we...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the last time I spoke to Becky that she'd actually completed most of the parish ones. She's now working through our own playgrounds. And there was one parish that joined quite late into this, so that one's still to do. So we're getting quite close for the parish work anyway.
Okay, and from what you said, Spencer, we're going to have a more detailed update next time. Okay, thank you for that. I've got Councillor Trapp.
I was going to ask about the parishes. And is that the late one? Is that Swaff and Poolbeck? It is. Will that be done by the year end or not?
It should be, yeah.
Okay, great. I can tell them that. What's happening to the dock ticket machine at the moment then? I mean, is it just free passage there?
No, it's working. They are solar powered, which is the biggest problem, especially this time of year, so that we get lots of failures. And we want to, and they don't also, you can't do the phone pay on them. They do cash, and I think the ones there don't do credit cards either. So it's updating the whole system down there really. But they are working. But I can't remember. Councillor Wheeling, have you used the ticket machine lately down there? Or you used the app?
No, I used the app, and then I got charged like 15 pence more than it was said on the...
So hence they need updating and mainly putting onto power and away from solar, which is the main thing.
$4.33 costs have been absorbed by the contingency allowance. How much of do you know how much of the contingency allowance has been absorbed by the extra work?
No, so I can't answer that question here, but I could bring it back in January.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Whelan, sorry.
Yeah, just to come back on the car park, obviously the use of cards has been problematic in the past, and it's not so much a question to you, but just a statement to say that it'll be good to actually make sure that the cards actually work, because I know in the past we've had to use 3 different cards to actually get the thing to work, the machines. So hopefully that will improve matters.
That's what we hope to do.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully that does get resolved, the car park. Certainly I use the other apps are available, but I use the Ringo app, and I find it very, very useful wherever it's taken. Yeah. No, I'm not. No. I'm just saying, whenever I park, certainly within West Suffolk, if I park in Newmarket, that's what they use. But I find it very useful. Members, I'm seeing no more hands. In which case, as I say, that was just for noting. So I think we've duly noted it. So thank you, Spencer. Then item 9 is Littleport assets, and we've got Spencer's been joined by Emma Grimmer, and who I think is going to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. So the report before you this evening is about Littleport assets, and it follows the request that was made from Littleport Town Council. I keep going to call them Parish Council. It's been a while since they were that. So the assets that they have requested are the barn, which is where they operate their parish council Town Council meeting from, the public conveniences at Main Street in Littleport, the car park that adjoins the barn and the public conveniences, and a small parcel of public open space at Parsons Lane. Now, the open space is important to the future plans of the expansions. They're trying to secure that now so that they can continue to have those discussions. Part of my discussions with them after they made the request were about the restrictions and how much they would be willing, what the financial consideration is, and it's set out in the report that it would be for £1, but there'd be restrictions in place for that as well. So the recommendation for you this evening is to transfer the assets to Littleport Town Council for the consideration of £1 with the restrictions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Emma. I'll go to questions first. Members, any questions? Councillor Colbert.
Thank you. I just want to get this clear in my mind. Are these assets which the old Littleport Urban District Council, or whatever it was, owned before 1974 that ECDC inherited, or are they things that that ECDC have paid for, or what, please?
If I can, through you, Chair, I'm pretty sure that they weren't originally the parish offices. They were buildings that the council owned. And
no, but the question is, was it the old Isle of Inn before the council existed?
Sorry, I couldn't answer that one.
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question, but I can circulate that information off.
Okay, thank you. If you can circulate that to members. Councillor Whelan, you want to come back in? Yeah.
Yeah, just to ask, how many had other parishes inquired about acquiring assets, and have they been encouraged to do so?
Through you, Chair. So I am currently responding to requests. So I am due to meet with Soham Town Council shortly, who have also made a request to consider what council assets there are that they would also like to do. But I'm not actively pursuing or setting out, say, the council's willing to consider it, dispose of its assets. I am responding to requests.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Denny.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Emma. Obviously, I've had a conversation with you on a couple of occasions in regard to Witchford in my parish. So how does that leave Witchford? Because obviously they've written to you, the parish council, the clerk has written to you in regards to taking certain assets. And I know in particular Victoria Green they've been discussing with. So how does that, where do we go from that?
So I did respond to Witchford, and Littleport have made a similar request about the public open spaces as well, but I need to look at that in the round of open spaces, because it's not as straightforward as transferring open spaces, because there's things like TUPE implications that apply. So if you take one area out or you take multiple areas out, there's staffing implications with that. So what I've agreed with, what I've said to both is that I will work with Spencer. We will do a review of our open spaces that are owned by the council, because we need to manage that carefully, because you can't just start taking chunks out of the open space. So it needs a more holistic approach to it than just responses. Why it's different with Littleport on this particular area of open space is, one, it's a very small area of open space, and two, it's because it's advancing another time-sensitive issue, which is the expansion of the medical practice. So that's why I've treated it differently in this one. But Littleport did ask, can we consider all your other open spaces assets? And so I'll put that into the review that we will do over the course of the next financial year, so that we can come back with a balanced approach to dealing with it, because you can't just start taking bits of open space out of the schedule, because there are staffing implications with that. So that's how I'm dealing with that, Councillor. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just quickly, sorry, I'll come back on that. Do you know roughly when that review is going to be done?
I don't know today roughly when that review is going to be done. It's something that Spencer and I have discussed already, but we haven't put a timetable to it yet. But I do understand that it is important to a lot of parishes that put those requests in as well. So I would anticipate it won't take forever to do that review, and it's something that I would like to start in 2026-27 with Spencer.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I've got him next, yeah. Councillor Hunt, yeah. Yeah, we're still on questions, yeah. Councillor Trapp.
So are you saying then that public spaces that are totally included, i.e. not parts of it, but just small bits, will be easier to obtain or to discuss for transfer to parish councils?
Through you, Chair. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying we need to look at all open spaces in the round, but this one is a very small area that adjoins open space that is already owned by Littleport Town Council and is maintained by them. But the distinction is that they need that area of land to consider the future of the medical practice. So disposal of open space assets aside, this request would always have come forward because it's important to the future expansion plans for the medical practice. So it's distinctly different.
You're not ruling out then parishes applying for taking over land. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'm seeing no more questions, in which case we're going to be asked to approve this recommendations as in set out in 4.4. So do I have a proposer for that?
I'm happy to propose.
Councillor Miller, and...
I was waiting for you to go on to the debate section.
Do I have a seconder for this?
You do. It's me.
Yeah, but I'm going to go to Councillor Miller first. Do you want to propose the...
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to begin with a small amendment. The third bullet at section 4.4, which presently reads, the freehold transfer of the car park Main Street Littleport for the value of £1, with the restriction that LTC will not introduce car parking charges, that's how it reads now, to insert the words, the land may not be used for any other purpose, after £1 with the restriction, that. So the full, the amended bullet would read, the freehold transfer of the car park Main Street Littleport for the value of £1 with the restriction that the land may not be used for any other purpose and that LTC will not introduce parking charges. That,
Anything else you want to say on the...
Yes, indeed. This request comes against the background of local government reform, which we are all well aware. Reorganisation towards a unitary local government in Cambridgeshire is not a theoretical discussion. When that takes place, ECDC will cease to be an independent entity and all its assets will go to whichever unitary we end up with as being part of. There exists, therefore, the potential for such assets to be disposed of in ways we didn't intend. I trust all will join me in wishing to ensure that this does not happen and that the assets remain or are put to their intended purpose. Granting this request seems the best way of ensuring that these assets remain where they belong, in the hands of the Littleport community through its town council. Therefore, I commend the proposal at paragraph 4.4. Thank you.
Now, Councillor Hunt, did you want to speak now? Or reserve your right?
Thank you. Yes, I would like to, if I may. I share Councillor Miller's concern in that under 3.5, it's just really putting only a restriction on there to prevent car parking charges being introduced. I think that wants to be a more comprehensive protection. It doesn't want to be sold off for building development or whatever, and it needs to be, I would suggest that if we can have some wording there to deal with it tonight, to say that it's insufficient. We want to add a little bit of meat to it, I believe, to say that it would be prepared to accept a restriction to prevent car parking charges being introduced and the area to be retained for car parking charges or something, car parking, something like that. I think
I think what Councillor Miller said is on 4.4, it's bullet point 3, that it wouldn't be used for any other purpose. So it doesn't.
So that's going to be included. That's going to be included then.
I'm happy to accept that. I'm looking for any. I mean, technically we can debate this as an amendment, then it becomes substantive. But I'm hoping that it's small enough that more members will accept that slight adjustment to it. Yeah.
Okay, that was one thing, Chair, and the other thing was the the visit that we had under the planning committee to that site as on 3.6 has really highlighted the benefits of visiting sites so members can get a better idea of what's going on. It was quite clear when we went to that site that the existing bit of grass was useless and wasn't being used for anything else, and yet it was a key to expanding the GP surgery, which of course the village or the town needs and wants and would appreciate. So it's rather, I have an apprehension that in 2 years' time there may not be visits to sites, and therefore the truth may be hidden. And in this case, it's a very good idea that we went there, because it's quite clearly a use. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Any other members want to? Oh, Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say I did have I visited Littleport Town Council. I met with the chair and the clerk and had a long discussion and a little tour of some of their activities, and I just wanted to really say how hugely impressive I thought they were. They've got huge ambition for Littleport, and it's not just ambition, they're really delivering. You know, they've already, well, quite some time now since they opened the youth community hub building. They've got funding together for a whole new building, which is going to have a number of activities in it, and the ambition for the barn, that frees up, the town council will be moving into their new building, which frees up the barn, where they've got massive ambition to bring forward a museum for Littleport as well. And if you go into the barn, they've got this huge ancient chest with lots of important documents in it, which is all very impressive, and I can see it looking very good in the new museum. So I just wanted to give them my congratulations, and I think we couldn't be handing over these assets to a better run organisation, really safe pair of hands, and I think they are in much better to be in local people's hands, where, you know, they can do with them what they've set out to do, and you know, keep that use going. So thank you to them for all their hard work and for making this request.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I've got Councillor Trapp.
Yeah, I just want to say what a good idea this is, and where there are small spaces in villages or towns that the parish can, or town council can look after it. Where we don't know the great unknown as to what will happen in 2 years' time. So I think this is a very good idea that actual local people can look after these assets, which are of small strategic, small financial value in some cases, but are actually very strategically important.
Thank you, Councillor Trapp. Councillor Colbert.
I must say I'm going to abstain on this one, because I'm really suffering with the business of buildings, because I'm absolutely in favour of a town council taking over buildings which have historically been theirs, but I'd be much less favourably inclined to permit a town council to take over a building that East Cambs District Council had in the recent past paid for, because it seems to me that that wouldn't be fair to the rest of East Cambs. So I think I'd have to think long and hard about any of these cases at all, and I'm just concerned about creating a precedent where I wouldn't feel the precedent was fair. The only other thing was I was going to observe about the public open space at Parsons Lane, Littleport. I absolutely agree that it absolutely makes sense to leave that as public open space so that it can be used if needs be. I'm just sort of slightly in a quandary about the term in perpetuity, because the situation might change, that the Littleport Town Council might have a future good use for it if the doctor's surgery extension didn't go ahead, and I'd hate to think that they weren't able to develop it because it had been deemed forever to be a public open space, if you get my drift. Yeah.
you want to go?
I want to say something, if I may. I didn't know whether Emma was going to jump in or quite what we're going to do. I mean, the idea is that it will have a restrictive, I think I'm right in saying a restrictive covenant, and any future owner of that piece of land can go to the covenant owner, which will currently be East Cambs District Council, but in future, whatever council it's gone into, to request a change or a release from that covenant. So...
I know you're the seconder, but you want to come back. I'll let you come back if it's...
I wanted to ask Spencer a question.
Okay, right. We have moved on from that, but I'm happy for you to do that if you want.
Spencer, the Littleport Town Council, how do they hold the barn at the moment? I was under the impression it was on a very long lease.
It's on a peppercorn rent.
So it's on it is, as I thought, on a 99-year lease for £1 a year rent.
I believe so.
Thank you. That might help, Councillor Colbert.
Yeah. Okay, I've got Councillor Huffer.
I appreciate what you're saying, Councillor Colbert, but to be honest with you, I would rather see these assets in the hand of people that live in the area, Littleport Town councillors, who are dedicated to their constituents and to their residents, rather than it end up in the hands of a unitary who will just sell it off to the highest bidder. I think this is protecting Littleport residents, their assets for Littleport residents, rather than it ending up in the hands of a unitary that has absolutely no investment in the area whatsoever and just wants to sell off any assets that are available to pay off debt. I'd rather see it in the hands and responsibility of the people that live in the area and who know what their residents need and want, rather than just leaving it to God knows what in the future.
Councillor Colbert, you want to come in?
That's a very valid point. I'm a bit concerned about what you think about Peterborough now.
It's not Peterborough. It's just any financial organiser, any assets. It doesn't matter which unitary you go into. They're going to be looking around for assets to sell. Simple as that.
No, I am teasing you. I do get your drift.
Yeah, I understand where we're going, but we slightly digressed, I think. Yes, I mean, as I said just now, are members happy to... I mean, technically we could take the amendment, then it becomes substantive, but I'm trying to move it forward. And I'm trying to see what Councillor Miller said, which is in 4.4, the third bullet point, is that we add the words "and not to be used" after "will not introduce car park charge" and "will not be used for any other purpose." Yeah. Is that members happy with that?
Emma, does that do what we need it to do?
Through you, Chair. So the way I've written it now is that it will now read: the freehold transfer of the car park, Main Street, Littleport, for the value of £1, with a restriction that the land may not be used for any other purpose, and that Littleport Town Council will not introduce car parking charges. That's what I've noticed.
I think that sums up. So, Councillor Trapp.
I thought the last bullet point actually had that in, a restriction not to sell the land or assets for. The other thing about having car parking only might be that we may not have car parks soon. We may not have cars. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Miller, as the proposer of the motion, did you want to make any final comments? You don't have to. It's up to you.
I think Councillor Colbert made some valid points and valid concerns, and I confess they hadn't actually occurred to me. So thank you for putting those points forward. But if it is the case that I don't know how covenants work in law, but if it's the case that us or the future unitary can amend that covenant on reasonable grounds, then that seems like a perfect solution to me. So beyond that, nothing further. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Miller. In which case, members had the wording that Emma Grimm has just read out. So that's the adjustment to that. So I'll go to 2.0, and members are requested to approve the recommendations as set out in 4.4 of the report and delegate authority to the Director Legal and Monitoring Officer to complete the relevant legal documentation to implement 2.2 above. Can I have a show of hands of those who are in favour? Oh, you know. I think we've yeah, we've crept over the line unanimously, I think. Yeah, thank you, members. Yeah, and thank you, Emma Spencer. Item 10 is the new East Cambridgeshire District Council Fund to support emerging neighbourhood plans. And I've got David Moran, who I believe is going to introduce the report.
I will do. Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I want to introduce Rachel Hogger, who's sitting next to myself. She is our Senior Strategic Planning Officer, who has drafted the document that you've got in front of yourselves. As members might recall, at full council on the 18th of September, it was resolved that we would create a new fund, effectively to replace central government funding for our parish councils in respect to neighbourhood plans. What has been proposed is a matched funded system of up to £5,000 per neighbourhood plan area towards their costs to produce either their neighbourhood plan or any updated neighbourhood plans going forward. What you have as part of the appendix for item 10 is effectively an operational document that sets out how we intend to run the scheme, how we intend to invite applications from those parishes, how they will be considered and how we will then hand out the funding. It's intended that as soon as possible, after, assuming members are happy with how this is operated, that we will get this rolled out and we will send out the appropriate communication to the parish councils so they're aware on how to do this. One thing that's not in the report that you've got in front of us, but it's sort of implicit in how it is written, is that we are intending that when we are agreeing to give money to the parish councils, that we will be asking them to keep records of what they are spending, similar to what we would do with SIL or Section 106 monies, purely so that if we are asked or if we are challenged or if we are asked for audit purposes, so we're able to reliably be able to tell people how we have spent public money. And we're obviously happy to answer any questions that members may have with regards to the operation of the service. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Members, any questions? I'm seeing no questions, in which case we're being asked to approve this. Do I have a proposer for...
I'm happy to propose, Chair, and thank you, Rachel, for this. It's very well done. I think it's very clear and concise as to what's happening, and I'm sure the parishes will welcome this. I know there's 6 or 7 at the moment looking to bring neighbourhood plans in before the government get hold of them. So thanks very much.
Okay, and do I have a seconder?
Yeah, happy to second, Chair, and just echo Councillor Bovingdon's comments, and thank you for bringing it forward so quickly. It only seems like 2 minutes ago since we were agreeing at full council, and here it is, and I think it's a really excellent thing that we're doing. We've always supported our parishes with neighbourhood planning, and it was a bit of a blow when the government took away the funding, or didn't renew the funding, more accurately. So really pleased that we've been able to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I've got Councillor Trapp.
I think it's a great idea. I'm glad we're having it. My only thing might be something about the limit of 5,000, which is fine for a smaller, for a parish, but for larger parishes, it may actually, which I don't know how much this neighbourhood plan costs in terms of size, whether it's pro rata to the size or whether it's a little bit more. But it might be just a little bit flexible for larger parishes or towns.
Average cost is around about 10,000.
You might, sorry. Yeah.
Average cost is around about 10,000, so 5,000 match funding is about right at the moment.
Regardless of size.
Yeah, and I think the opportunity here is that should costs rise, we can have the debate and conversation in the future as to whether or not that fund is increased, but at the moment it seems a reasonable amount.
Okay, thank you.
So there will be a slight degree of flexibility if needed. Could be.
Any other comments? I'm seeing none, in which case I'll move to the vote. Members are requested to approve the proposed scheme set out in Appendix 1 to the report for implementing the new district-wide match match fund to support emerging neighbourhood plans, and then delegate authority to the Directorate Operations to approve the grant allocation to parish councils where they meet the terms of the scheme as set out in Appendix 1. Can I see all those in favour of that, please? That's unanimous. Thank you, members, and thank you, David and Rachel, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Item 11 is the service delivery plans for 25-26, the 6-month performance update. As is traditional, we don't get the teams here to answer the questions at the 6 months, but obviously if you've got any questions, then Sally will take them away and we'll get an answer back to the whole committee. So this is purely for noting, so any questions, any comments, members? Yeah, I've got a couple, in which case I'm not seeing any questions, so I've got a couple. I was just trying to decipher my notes, which I couldn't decipher properly. It's on page 107, the street naming and numbering scheme, where it says it's, the target's 95%, currently at 80% due to volume of applications and officers' annual leave. I just wondered how long, you know, when we will be back on track, really, on that one. And then item, it's page 110, it's about the Kennet 100k homes. So we've got the, when are those plots likely to be completed, or are they completed already?
We're hoping to complete in January. So the applicants have already gone across to Bellway and Ashbury, so they're now going through the sales process with the developer.
And the final one for me is 112, and I'll then bring Councillor Denny in. The final one for me is 112 on car parking appeals. I just wondered how many appeals, it says we've 100% within 10 days, I just wondered how many appeals we're getting on that.
I can report back on that, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Maggie. So those are the ones I picked up, but Councillor Denny, you wanted to come in? Oh, was it Councillor Trapp?
And Councillor Whelan as well.
And Councillor
Because
Whelan.
I made him coffee, he thinks he ought to look after me. No, I just wanted, I mentioned this actually at the Operational Services Committee about using AI. That I wonder if we ought to be thinking about using AI effectively in this place. It has benefited an enormous number of people on services, and it may be actually something that might help, and I think we ought to be investigating that.
Maggie, you want to come back? Sorry. Oh, Jude, you want to answer it, Jude? Go on.
Yeah, I mean, AI, we are looking at it now, currently, and in the process of writing an AI policy for the council. So once that's implemented, then we will be looking to use more of the AI. Widely.
Great, thank you very much.
Is there anything you wanted to add to that? No, you're happy with that. Okay. Councillor Whelan.
Just on page 97, the awareness of fraud and corruption across the organisation, it comes up as not yet started yet, and it was planned for November 2025. I mean, I think in the current climate we need to, page 97?
Didn't we vote on this at full council to bring in the policy?
Sorry?
We voted on this at full council to bring in the policy.
Oh, okay. So when is it, the question is then when, you know, are we going to be is it going to be starting soon?
Okay. Yeah, as Councillor Huffer said, we did vote on that a couple of weeks ago. Can you advise?
How far has it got
Jude?
then, is the question.
Sorry, can you come back on your question, please?
Yeah, the fraud awareness.
Yeah, I mean,
How far's it got, basically?
for the November one, we have, it's going to be on the website. We have already spoken to the comms, and I believe it's going to be on the website about the awareness. And the other one's gone into the council for the approval, full council for the approval, the fraud strategy. Yeah, and it's approved. It's published on the website as well.
I think my point is that it needs to be probably escalated more, because it's quite important. I think fraud, awareness and everything. That's my point I'm trying to make.
I think what you're saying is you want it to be more prominent that we've got that. Okay, I don't necessarily disagree. Councillor Bailey, did you want to come in?
No, it's okay.
You sure? Okay. I'm seeing no other hands, and obviously the answers to the questions that have been raised will be distributed to members. And this is purely for noting, so I think we have noted it. Item 12, if I can get there, is the Community Infrastructure Levy funding request, and Sally's going to introduce the paper.
Thank you, Chair. Streatham and Wilburton CLT have written to the Council requesting an increase in SIL funding of £190,000 towards the LINK project. The LINK project will provide a new wellbeing community hub comprising GP premises, cafe and work units for meeting rooms and to support complementary medicine. In January 2024, this committee approved an allocation of £510,000 towards the project and at the same meeting an allocation of £700,000 from the Growth and Infrastructure Fund. An update on the project and the reason for the request are set out in Appendix 1. Members will note that there is a contingency allowance of £75,000. If approved, the funding will be awarded on an up-to basis, and if costs come in below budget, the amount of SIL funding paid to the CLT will be reduced accordingly. If members approve the request, there are sufficient funds in the SIL account to cover the increase. Streatham and Wilburton CLT have undertaken a value engineering exercise and market testing and state they are confident that the scheme can be delivered within budget and completion is expected late 2026. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sally. Members, any questions? Councillor Denny.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sally. I've got a number of questions. I suppose the first question point I'd like to make is I know it says it's going to be completed late 2026, yes? That's a year's time. But how can we be confident that we're not going to be overspent in a year's time? Because obviously we've overspent by 580,000 already, yes?
So obviously I've said, they've done the value engineering and market testing. We will only fund up to a third, so if members agree the extra tonight, there will be no more SIL funding available. If they do overspend, they will have to get that funding from other sources.
What sources would they be then? Borrowing, you mean?
That would be for the CLT to investigate and secure.
Thank you, Sally. Second question is, on the email from SWCLT, it states that borrowing will be from a blend of bank finance from existing lenders, local charities and loan finance, and or other commercial borrowing. Can we be a bit more precise? What sort of borrowing, lenders are we actually looking at, and sort of costs that could incur?
So again, that's for the CLT to determine, but what we will ask for is that they have that much funding in place before we release that funding. But again, it's up for them to determine their alternative funding sources.
How does this affect the parish? Because, I've been in touch with the parish council and they weren't aware of this. So the CWCLT hadn't informed them that they were going to come back for more money. But will there be a cost potentially to the council taxpayers in parish of Streatham?
So the money's coming from SIL, so no.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No. So we go to this. Obviously, we've been requested to approve this. So, do I have a proposer for this? Yes. Councillor Hunt. And do I have a seconder?
Yeah, happy to second,
Councillor
Chair.
Bailey. So we've basically moved into debate now. So do you want to propose this recommendation?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I think it's really important to understand that the doctor's surgery in Streatham would benefit quite a large area. And in fact, you know, even if it was a matter of just taking pressure off surrounding GP surgery, it would be good. But clearly this isn't just going to service Streatham, it's going to service Little Thetford and Wilburton and Wicken as well. And when it does that, it's also going to take pressure off those existing GP surgeries at Hadnam and Ely and Soham. So there's a wide benefit. Members have been asked questions by members of the Soham Parish Council, Streatham Parish Council. The point is that the village did have a lot of, it was a high temperature debate early on, and Streatham Parish Council have made it quite clear they are contributing nothing to the budget, which is unusual. And so, but it is very much wanted by the members of the parish. They obviously want a bright new doctor's surgery, and the assumption that when you say to a group or a business or a CLT, we're not going to contribute anything towards you, we're not going to do this, and I've heard that being said. It's important that we get this GP surgeries up and running and serving the people who've been waiting a very long time, and the CLT has managed to eventually get there and will be in a position to supply a very needed facility for the village and the community around it. So I urge that members support this, because I think it's very important, and people keep stopping me in the street, and I'm sure they've done with my co-pilot who's been approached by people, and they're saying, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? And it's obviously a lot more difficulty if there's no contribution from the parish council. But it will go, the plans are advanced, and it's something that the village desperately wants and needs. So I'll leave that with you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Bailey, did you want to speak now or reserve your right? Okay, thank you. Members, Councillor Denny.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I just come back on what Councillor Hunt has said? My understanding is that the parish council has already given 170 grand to the fund as such.
Given what, pardon, if I may?
170,000.
They haven't contributed anything. And I've had parish councillors look me in the face and saying, we're not giving a penny piece.
You might be talking about the current council committee, but I'm talking about the previous committee.
This has been going on for some time.
So are we saying that that 170,000 wasn't given over originally then?
I don't believe. Something may have happened in the last day or two. If you can, that would be helpful.
I mean, certainly if we look at the Appendix 1, the bottom of there's no mention of parish council funding. Okay, Councillor Bailey, do you want to help?
I suspect what somebody might have told you is around a previous scheme that was being worked up by the parish council to use some of the land on the CLT site to deliver a different building in a different way, and it was being led and run by the parish council, and during that time they worked up plans and, you know, did planning applications and so on. So I suspect whoever it is who's been talking to you may be referring to a previous project. That project is long dead in the water. So Streatham and Wilburton Community Land Trust began a new project entirely on their own, from scratch, with zero funding, and this is what is being presented today.
Okay, thank you for that. You want to come back, Councillor Denny? Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Can I just say then, where's that 170,000 gone now then?
Yeah, I think you'd need to ask the parish council. That was the parish council's project that they decided not to continue with, and they aborted the project. So it's lost money.
Okay. Members, any other? Councillor Trapp.
I seem to recall the debate about this some time ago. I thought it was beside, I mean, the medical practice is fine. I think that's very good, and it takes a lot of pressure off everyone. But I thought the plans were also to have a meeting centre as well, which was the source of disagreement with the parish. I'm just wondering how much there is going to be here, whether it's been refigured, so it's just a medical practice, or whether there's ancillary stuff here, which was not thought of highly by the parish. But I may be wrong.
So that was the previous scheme that we've just been talking about. This has meeting rooms, but it hasn't got the large sort of village hall area, if you like, this time.
Are the meeting rooms necessary?
Yes, they're to provide work units and also to support complementary health and act as meeting rooms as well, so they're sort of multi-use.
Sorry, Chair, are we in debate or questions?
We're in debate,
I
yes.
thought we were in
yeah.
debate. Sorry.
Yes, Councillor Huffman.
I don't believe, Councillor Trapp, it is our place to tell the CLT what meeting rooms or what is necessary and what isn't necessary. They've put the scheme together in the best way, and they've had it funded and they've had it looked at. They've worked out exactly what it is they're trying to do, and I think we should support them. I mean, if somebody, I wish a CLT came forward in Fordham to put a doctor's surgery with meeting rooms with alternative health, because I mean, I'd take their arm off at the elbow, to be honest with you, because it's exactly the sort of thing that we need to be encouraging.
Thank you, Councillor Huffer. I've got Councillor Whelan.
Yeah, some of my concerns are that whether the NHS will actually fund the operation of the GP service at Streatham without detriment to the other surrounding practices. That's one thing I think you have to consider, bearing in mind the lack of doctors generally and the lack of trying to get doctors in and everything else. And I think that's something that needs to be considered. This project was to do with building the doctor's surgery and everything else, from my recollection, and the adjoining part of it. And that is my concern, whether the NHS will actually take it on. That is a real concern of mine.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Whelan. I've got Councillor Miller.
On that point, my understanding is that GPs are private businesses, effectively, partnerships, and that they themselves get no funding from the NHS at all, except on a contractual basis, so much for so many patients, and there's some arrangement other than that, and the NHS itself certainly wouldn't be responsible for running the actual surgery, you know, the property and its maintenance and so on. Maybe I've got that wrong, but if that is the case, then I can't see any immediate cause for concern on whether the NHS would support it or not.
Members, any other questions? Any other comments? Sorry. Councillor Bailey technically is the seconder, so we'll get a chance to come back in, unless it's a point of clarification.
Okay, I mean, other people are speaking more than once.
I know,
I just
I know.
wanted to clarify what the project is.
Okay, I'll let you come in.
Just because I have the knowledge of it.
But I'm trying. Yeah.
I mean, so just to say, you know, this is a project that we've already received to this authority. We've seen all the detailed designs. We've seen all the detailed information, both through the application to the growth and infrastructure and for the SIL funding previously. This is an update because they've now gone out to tender and, you know, got lockdown prices and done their value engineering exercise. And like most of these projects, it has regrettably gone up in cost. You know, we went through a similar process when we funded St Mary's surgery in Ely. They had to come back for additional funds, so it's not unusual. The point is that Streatham did have a GP surgery, and it was condemned because it was a terrible, tiny little building. This is a satellite operation from Hadnam Surgery, run by Staplow. So this is an arrangement between a number of organisations, and they do have a funding agreement from the NHS who will rent the buildings, and that is the responsibility of Staplow to secure that funding, and it is Staplow that will be the tenant in this building, paid for through NHS revenue funding. That is all part of the scheme and the information that we already reviewed and saw. That is the project that we've got before us. It's just that it's to get it over the line, we need to agree this additional bit of funding. So we have an opportunity to support the delivery of a brand new building in Streatham, which has been expanding a lot, and to take pressure off other GP surgeries. This is Staplow who want to bring this forward because they've lost their building in Streatham, and I cannot for the life of me understand why anybody would want to stop this from happening.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Trapp, you want to come?
I'd just like to come back. I'm not trying to stop this. What I am trying to say is, are the ancillary things so important, buildings? It seems the medical centre can exist without them, and I'd rather have it spent on that. I mean, we do know that all these big projects, these spending projects, will always go over budget, and there will be contingency requirements. But I'm just wondering, I know Councillor Huffer said it's up to them, but if I'm building a house, and I might be building a house soon, if I can't afford it, I'll have to scrap it. I can't go around to the bank and say, not at my age, and say, can you give me a bigger loan? I'll have to curtail it and not have five-car garage or something like that. I'll have to cut my sail cut my cloth to the sail. So that is my concern, that it's looking for something which is a big project. I'm very much in favour of the doctor's surgery. I think it's great that it's doing that. I think the more local ones we have, the better. And it'd be lovely to have one that's for them, because at the moment they use Soham all the time, don't they? There isn't one, I believe. So, yeah, great. But I'm just wondering whether it's all that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Trapp. Councillor Colbert.
Well, like Councillor Trapp, the last thing that I want to do is to prevent Streatham having a doctor's surgery. But Councillor Bailey has thrown considerably more light on this, because it was very unclear to me what was going on. As far as I could see, there were some buildings going up with no particular guarantee that either the local parish council wanted them or that there were going to be doctors placed in them. I'll sit here and mull this over a bit, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Colbert. I think no more hands, unless... Councillor Denny, you want to...
This is sort of a question, so am I allowed to ask the question?
Yes. Yeah, we're in debate, so ask... Yeah.
Well, two things. Actually, Councillor Bailey brought up about Hadnam. Is there a stipulation that the Hadnam surgery's got to be kept open?
I don't think
Not on the SIL
answer.
funding. There's no stipulation that we can put through. This is a project where they've come to us and presented a project and invited us to support that project through SIL funding. You know, it's a basic yes or no from us. We don't get to start messing with their project and saying you've got to do this or you've got to do that, or, you know, the only stipulations are the rules of the SIL funding scheme.
Right, so they could, in effect, whatever company it is, I can't remember what they're called, that run Hadnam surgery. So they could...
Staplow.
Right, so they could, in effect, if they wanted to shut Hadnam. I just wanted to clarify that, if they wanted to, and just move everything to Streatham.
You'd need to ask Staplow Trust, but from my discussions with them, there is absolutely no intention whatsoever of closing Hadnam, or no possibility. These are just, you know, a minor number of consulting rooms as a satellite surgery. This is not a GP surgery in its own right. It wouldn't have all the same facilities that a standalone GP surgery normally has. This is a satellite operation from Hadnam. and it fulfills a need that they have when they lost the building that they lost a number of years ago. And, you know, the scheme that's before us, they've put it together to meet what the NHS has said it requires, which is meeting rooms and ancillary space, ancillary to the actual surgery consulting rooms. The thing stands as a whole and makes it viable. It fulfills a need that the NHS is asked to be fulfilled.
Just one little
Yeah,
thing.
okay, I'll allow you.
When I was asked Sally about the SWCLT email, and you said it was up to, Sally said it was up to them to speak to the parish council and update them. Do we not have a duty as a council to keep the parish council informed?
No. This is an individual organisation. Any organisation can come to this council and request SIL funding for a project. We receive SIL applications from all sorts of different organisations, not just parish councils, and there is no requirement to update any parish council about an individual standalone project that's come forward for a request for SIL funding.
Councillor Akinwale.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just double check if there's a robust business plan for this project? And if there's one, where can I find the robust business plan?
So I've got a copy of the cash flow and the funding statement. If you wanted the business plan, you'd need to speak to the CLT.
Thank you.
Members, I'm conscious I've been very flexible with the debate
I mean,
here.
there is a reference
so-
in the papers to the previous papers, which includes the project, you know, cash flow and project plan that we previously had to this committee, and I think it came to full council. Did it? No, to this committee.
To this committee.
And I think Sally's got an updated one.
Yeah, it was this committee back in, I think it was January last year, 2024. Okay, I'm trying to sort of wrap this. If I go to the seconder, you've got the right to sum up.
No,
Councillor
nothing
Hunt.
further to add, Chair. I just hope everybody feels they can support it, because it's an important project that's going to deliver GP consulting space in the village of Streatham, and I cannot understand why people would not want that to come forward.
So, Councillor Hunt, over to you to sum up, please.
Yes, some of our newer councillors, this has been on the boil for at least 6 years, and it's also had work from the Stapler representative, who's been working on it nearly as long as that as well. It's something that is very much wanted. Whenever there's been a survey in the village, the population wanted. They all say, we want the doctor surgery, wouldn't they? You know they would. Any group, any community that said, do you want a brand new doctor's surgery in your village with a late, you know, even with an ambulance turning circle and things like that included, of course they'd say no. There was this brouhaha that took place, and I must say it was political. However, the CLT has stuck with this, and they've managed to sort of get the slowly. They've managed to get the plans put forward, and they're now on the cusp of supplying. And tonight we will make a decision: do we want the GP surgery to serve not just Streatham but the surrounding area, or do we not? And I know it's very much where I'm coming from, and I think anybody who was trying to prevent or delay this, the people of the area have been waiting long enough, and we owe it to them. And certainly I represent, and so does my colleague on the other side there, they represent this village, and he knows very well what the villagers want. They want it, and they need it, and they should have it. Thank you very much for your support.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hunt. So I'm going to the vote then. It's on 2.1. Members are requested to approve an increase of up to 190,000 to the amount of SIL funding available to the Streatham and Wilburton Community Land Trust, the LINK project. So all those in favour of that, please show. All those against? All those abstaining? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Item 13 is the finance report, which is for noting, but if I can ask Jude Anthony, the Finance Director, to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. At the end of the second quarter, the Council is forecasting an underspend of 877,000 compared to its revenue budget, as detailed in the Appendix 1. And on the other side, the capital expenditure is showing a overspend of 1.2 million, also set out in this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jude. As I say, it's just for noting this, but members, any questions? Councillor Trapp.
So, slightly, on the committee, this is Appendix 1, page 133. For instance, there's one item there which is housing benefits. The actual spend is already 1,397,000 and the forecast is 494,000. I'm just wondering why the actual is higher than the actual forecast. And I think there's a number of items like that for the whole thing. Page 133, for instance, housing benefits.
It's about halfway down that page.
It's opposite the whole function.
Yeah. Those of you without treasury tags, it's about halfway down the page. I mean, it may well be. Do we get income from government? And therefore the income has not hit the report. Because it would be my guess.
Sorry, it doesn't actually explain that the reason is that we're looking for more funding. There's more funding coming through. Is that right?
Let me come back to you with the detailed information for that.
There's a number of other ones. If you will, I won't go through them now, but if I send them to you, Jude.
No, I think if Jude can come back on that, because it's a valid question, Councillor Trapp. I understand the question, but if you can circulate that to members, please, Jude. Yeah. Members, any other questions on the finance report? In which case, it's just for, and you've got some other questions. Did you say?
So there's some other lines like that.
Yes.
And I'll circulate them to Jude if I can.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which do you know anything specific? If you can tell me.
For instance, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah.
Yes, if you can, if you've got those queries, you can send them to Jude, and if Jude could circulate all of the answers and the queries to all the members of the committee, that would be useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments, questions? No? In which case, that is just for noting. So we move on to item 14, which is the Treasury Operations Mid-Year Review, and again, it's over to you, Jude.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides a mid-year Treasury performance update. The Council is forecasting an investment income of over 900,000 for the full year of 25-26. There is a typo on the page 158, which I would like to members to note, which we will correct before it goes to the website is, it should read as 0.9 million, not 9 million. Page 148.
It's on the top of page 158.
Yeah, 0.9, yes.
No,
I think
yeah, the last
that's-
page of the report. Yeah, it should read 0.9298 million and not 9.298.
so. Members are asked to recommend this report to the full council. Thank you.
Thank you, Jude. As this is a procedural item, I'm happy to propose this from the chair. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second, Chair, although, you know, 9 million out, well.
We're hoping it's just a typo and not the records are out there. Members, any questions, any comments? Okay. In which case, we're being asked to recommend this to full council, as set out in Appendix 1 with the alteration. So obviously, hopefully that's altered before it goes to full council. So members, all in favour of recommending this to full council?
Yes.
Yeah. Any? That was unanimous. Okay, thank you. So that brings us to item 15, which is the forward agenda plan. As I mentioned earlier on, under the assets update, we've got a more detailed 6 months report from Isabel Edgar on the bereavement centre. So obviously that will get added to the forward plan. Are there any other comments on the forward plan? Councillor Bailey.
Just a small item I would like to be added in order to be able to make a change to the council's representative on the Waterbeach IDB, please. Because our very long-standing representative would like to stand down in the new year.
Yes, thank you. I did see the emails on that. Yeah, thanks for reminding us. With that one addition, members are happy to note the forward plan? Yes. Okay. In which case, that brings us to the end of the public session of the meeting. And do I have a proposal?